Welcome to episode 100 of your CYS A+ Prep Cast. In today's milestone episode, we're diving deep into one of the most operationally critical areas in cybersecurity, vulnerability prioritization and escalation. As organizations are constantly identifying hundreds, sometimes thousands of vulnerabilities across their environments, it becomes essential to establish clear, scalable methods for determining which risks need immediate attention and which can be managed over time. Understanding how to prioritize vulnerabilities and escalate them appropriately ensures that limited resources are focused on the threats most likely to disrupt operations, cause data loss, or violate compliance obligations. This knowledge will strengthen your real-world analyst skills and is a fundamental topic on the CYSA Plus exam. Let's start with a definition of vulnerability prioritization. At its core, prioritization is the process of ranking vulnerabilities based on a variety of risk factors, including technical severity, ease of exploitation, the criticality of affected systems, the sensitivity of exposed data, and the current threat landscape. Because no organization has infinite resources or time, prioritization enables analysts to make strategic decisions about where to focus remediation efforts. Without prioritization, organizations risk spending time on low-risk issues while leaving high-impact vulnerabilities unaddressed. Vulnerability management programs must confront the fact that remediation cannot be instantaneous. Operational constraints, testing requirements, system dependencies, and change control policies all slow the pace at which fixes can be applied. This makes prioritization even more important. Analysts must evaluate which vulnerabilities present the greatest risk based on context, not just CVSS score, but also exploit availability, system exposure, and business relevance. Prioritization is what bridges the gap between vulnerability discovery and actionable, defensible remediation. One of the most widely used tools for supporting prioritization is the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS. This framework provides a standardized way to evaluate vulnerabilities based on metrics such as attack complexity, required privileges, user interaction, impact scope, and confidentiality integrity, and availability impact. Analysts use CVSS scores to establish baseline severity ratings, typically ranging from low to critical. However, these scores are only a starting point. True prioritization requires layering in additional intelligence to reflect real-world risk more accurately. Exploitability is one of the most important factors beyond CVSS. If a vulnerability is known to have a publicly available exploit or is actively being used in attack campaigns, it warrants immediate prioritization, even if its CVSS score is moderate. Exploit databases, security advisories, and threat intelligence feeds all help analysts determine whether a vulnerability is being weaponized in the wild. Vulnerabilities that are theoretical are less urgent than those that are actively enabling breaches. Analysts must stay current with threat reports and understand how adversaries operate. The value and role of the affected asset also play a significant role in prioritization. A critical vulnerability on a test server is far less concerning than the same vulnerability on a domain controller, a financial database, or an externally facing customer portal. Asset classification frameworks help organizations define which systems are considered high value or mission critical, and this data is then used to enrich vulnerability reports and guide prioritization efforts. Analysts must ensure that vulnerability management tools are integrated with up-to-date asset inventories that reflect business value and technical interdependence. Real-world threat intelligence integration elevates prioritization from a static scoring exercise to a dynamic risk assessment process. Intelligence feeds provide context, such as whether a vulnerability is being exploited by ransomware groups, targeted by nation-state actors, or included in automated scanning kits. By integrating this intelligence into the prioritization workflow, analysts ensure that response activities align with emerging threats and that remediation efforts protect the organization from the most relevant attack vectors. Accurate prioritization depends on complete visibility, which is why asset inventory and vulnerability scanning must be foundational parts of any vulnerability management program. Analysts use automated tools to scan endpoints, servers, applications, and cloud environments for known vulnerabilities. These scans generate the data required to identify which systems are affected, how widespread the issue is, and whether compensating controls are already in place. Asset inventories must be continuously maintained to reflect changes in infrastructure, especially in dynamic or cloud-based environments. Risk assessments serve as the formal framework for converting raw vulnerability data into business-aligned prioritization. Analysts evaluate potential financial losses, operational impacts, legal consequences, and reputational damage associated with each vulnerability. These assessments help organizations articulate their risk tolerance and establish thresholds for remediation urgency. By aligning technical data with business outcomes, risk assessments empower security teams to communicate priorities clearly to leadership and secure the resources needed for remediation. To manage this complexity at scale, organizations implement centralized vulnerability management platforms. These platforms aggregate scan results, integrate asset and threat intelligence, support workflow automation, and provide customizable dashboards for tracking remediation efforts. Centralized platforms streamline prioritization by automatically highlighting vulnerabilities that exceed risk thresholds or that meet specific escalation criteria. Analysts use these tools to manage remediation tasks, assign responsibilities, and monitor progress across diverse technical environments. Every prioritization effort must be documented thoroughly. Analysts record the rationale for prioritization decisions, the timeline for remediation, the controls in place for deferred fixes, and the communication sent to stakeholders. This documentation supports transparency and accountability, and it creates a historical record that can be referenced during audits, incidents, or retrospective reviews. Proper documentation also helps avoid duplicated effort and ensures continuity when team members rotate or change roles. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are more security courses on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Now that we've covered how to effectively prioritize vulnerabilities, let's shift our focus to escalation, another key function of vulnerability management. Escalation is the process of communicating vulnerabilities to the appropriate decision makers, ensuring they are promptly addressed, especially when the risk exceeds normal thresholds. Escalation is not just about sounding the alarm. It's about ensuring the right people receive the right information at the right time to take meaningful action. Without a clear escalation pathway, critical vulnerabilities can be delayed, miscommunicated, or deprioritized, increasing the organization's risk exposure. Escalation begins with clearly defined policies. These policies outline when, how, and to whom vulnerabilities should be escalated based on predefined criteria. These criteria may include CVSS thresholds, exploitability status, impact on regulated data, or asset criticality. For example, an actively exploited vulnerability on a payment processing server may trigger immediate escalation to senior security leadership, while a low-risk flaw on an internal printer may follow standard remediation timelines. Clear policies help standardize escalation decisions and avoid inconsistency. Timeliness is essential. Vulnerabilities that meet escalation thresholds must be communicated rapidly, using standardized formats and verified delivery methods. Analysts often use structured reports that include the vulnerability details, affected assets, potential business impact, exploitability status, recommended mitigation steps, and remediation timelines. This format ensures that all necessary context is presented up front, reducing delays caused by back-and-forth clarifications. Timely escalation prevents critical vulnerabilities from languishing in a queue or being missed due to incomplete information. Roles and responsibilities must be clearly defined. Escalation processes work best when every team knows who is responsible for each stage of the response. Security analysts may be responsible for identifying and initiating the escalation, IT operations for implementing the fix, compliance teams for updating regulators if required, and leadership for allocating resources or adjusting risk posture. Accountability ensures that escalated issues are not dropped or misrouted, and that resolution is driven by the right stakeholders. Escalation does not exist in a vacuum. It is most effective when it is integrated into other cybersecurity processes. Many organizations incorporate escalation into their incident response plans, ensuring that when a vulnerability reaches a critical threshold, it triggers predefined response activities. Some organizations also build escalation logic directly into their vulnerability management platforms. When a vulnerability with specific attributes is detected, the system automatically creates a high-priority ticket, notifies the appropriate personnel, and starts a remediation workflow. Regular reporting to leadership is a key component of effective escalation. Senior decision-makers need visibility into high-risk vulnerabilities, particularly those that affect business continuity or regulatory compliance. Reports should highlight trends, delays, resolution timelines, and any obstacles to remediation. Providing this visibility enables leadership to take action, whether it's authorizing emergency maintenance windows, approving budget for mitigation tools, or adjusting risk acceptance thresholds. Escalation is a means to ensure leadership is informed, engaged, and equipped to make strategic decisions. Training is necessary to ensure escalation procedures are followed properly. All personnel involved in vulnerability management, including analysts, IT administrators, developers, and compliance officers, should be familiar with the escalation process. Training includes how to recognize vulnerabilities that require escalation, how to use the communication templates, and how to track resolution progress. The current training reinforces process adherence, helps new staff onboard quickly, and reduces confusion during critical situations. Effective escalation relies on collaboration across teams. Security cannot act in isolation. IT must be ready to patch or configure systems. Development teams must be available to update code or libraries, and compliance officers must evaluate reporting requirements. Business unit leaders may need to authorize temporary service disruptions or evaluate the trade-offs between remediation and operational impact. Open communication and shared objectives help ensure escalated issues are resolved without unnecessary delays or friction between departments. Escalation policies and practices must evolve through continuous improvement. Analysts conduct postmortems to evaluate how escalated vulnerabilities were handled. Did the notification reach the right person? Was the response time acceptable? Were any obstacles encountered? Feedback loops from these reviews are used to refine escalation thresholds, update communication protocols, and clarify team responsibility. These insights help the organization mature its vulnerability management practices and respond more effectively in future cases. Finally, escalation practices must be documented with the same rigor as prioritization decisions. Escalation records should include the vulnerability details, the date and time of escalation, the recipients of the communication, the actions taken, and the final resolution. This documentation supports audit readiness, incident investigation, and trend analysis. It also allows security teams to demonstrate due diligence and improve future communication strategies. To conclude, Episode 100, Vulnerability Prioritization and Escalation are two sides of the same coin in effective cybersecurity management. Prioritization ensures that the most critical vulnerabilities are addressed first based on business context and real-world threats. Escalation ensures that when those vulnerabilities arise, they are communicated, acted upon, and resolved quickly through structured processes. Together, they enable organizations to manage risk efficiently, reduce the likelihood of incidents, and align security efforts with operational and strategic goals. Mastering these principles prepares you for success on the CYSA Plus exam and equips you to take on a leadership role in any cybersecurity operations environment. Thanks for listening. To learn more about cybersecurity, please visit baremetalcyber.com. There you will find best-selling books, videos, and even more free cybersecurity training courses. Please subscribe to the Prepcast and our various podcasts. And thanks for listening.